Hey everybody, it's Matt. Welcome back to the Journey Church podcast. If you haven't yet, be sure to subscribe to this podcast so you can automatically get our weekly episodes. And you might want to go ahead and subscribe to our Journey YouTube channel as well. You'll find messages, music, interviews, inspiring stories, and more for you all right there. Now, I hope this episode helps you take your next step in following Jesus.
Hey, my name is Jarrod. Let's jump into part 4 of this series called Gaming Relationships. I grew up playing games. Did you guys grow up playing? Anybody grow up playing games? I love games for a different reason. Matt has been talking about the last week. He keeps talking about how people love games because they're so competitive. And I'm always like, that's not why I love games. I like to compete. I think it's great. Competitive people are fun to make fun of when they lose. But I like games because they're just fun. Is that possible? So I grew up playing games that weren't about like having a winner or loser, but those things. But I want to show you a game that my daughters got me and my wife into playing. And my wife and I are terrible at it, and our daughters are great at it. But I wanted to show you an example of the game that I play for fun, not because I'm good at it or because it's competitive. There is no competitive in this game. It's just hilarious. So the game is called Gardic Phone. Anybody played Gardic Phone before? Gosh, are you kidding me? You guys are going to love this. This is going to be the best part of the whole day. This game, it's played on your phone. Everybody gets a little link to a certain game, and you can select all these different kinds of games. And basically the idea is that you really don't know what everybody else is doing on their phone until the very end. And it all kind of wraps up. So this game I'm going to show you, basically you start with somebody types in a prompt. It's like you got a sentence to write. So here's what one of our family members wrote. Are you the coolest bro? Only the coolest bros can party. That's the starter of the game. The next person gets that phrase, but must draw a picture to illustrate this sentence. And here's what one of our family members drew. These are obviously the coolest bros, right? And this is obviously nobody wanting to party with me, right? So you can see that we don't know, nobody knew, right? So this is all hidden. So the third person gets this photo, not the first sentence, just gets this photo and must caption the photo, right? Here's the next caption. The coolest bros don't want to hang with me at the party, which is pretty close. And you're like, wow, that was really good. That drawing was really great. That drawing really helped capture the essence of that first sentence, which is kind of the goal, right? And then you have a real talented artist takes this third slide and must create a real piece of art. And then you go, my first drawing was not good. But then you see that this is what the coolest bros really look like, and this is what a party looks like without me, right? So the high idea is that then at the end you get revealed all the 4 steps together, and we all make fun of those of us who can't draw, and then the people who can draw try not to make us feel too badly about it in the end. But we all end up laughing really hard about different things that get drawn, and guys, just think about that first drawing versus the second drawing, right? This is not real fun for the parents in the room. But here's my point. We've been in this series. You don't ever know in this game what's about to happen. Have you ever played a game in a relationship where somebody's playing a game, but you have no idea what's going on? Have you ever been the one playing the game, but you didn't tell somebody? That's why we've been in this series called Gaming Relationships. We have literally been talking about how sometimes in relationships we tend to play games, right? And we think they're getting us somewhere. We think, man, we're going to win this one. I'm going to win this argument. I'm going to win this person over. And we're playing by a whole set of rules, and this other person has no clue the game that we're actually playing. And we're stuck in this game in relationships. And the problem Matt talked about for the last 3 weeks, here's the big issue, that relationally speaking, a game that requires a loser is a game that nobody actually wins, right? Have you ever won in a relationship and you're like, yeah, got her that time. Yeah, man, he knows now who's the boss, right? And you win, but you didn't win, right? Because in the long run, you didn't actually win, because really, what's the point of a relationship? It's the relationship. That's what we've been talking about this last few weeks. So we're trying to get to the point where we realize that some of the games we play are not helping anybody win in our relationships. And rather than playing these games, like the 4 we've talked about so far, you guys remember we talked about playing the blame game or the shame game or the guilt game or the change game, all these different games. Listen, if you missed this series, go back and watch the first 3. We've talked about all these ways that these kinds of games destroy relationships. They don't build trust. They destroy it. They don't actually help us to get closer, more intimate with the people around us. They don't help us work better with the people we work with. They don't help us live better with the people we live with. None of these actually work. There's an answer to all that. So today, I want to continue this series. There's another game we play that actually destroys relationships in all sorts of ways that we're going to talk about. We're talking about the comparison game. Now, the comparison game is such a core thing to us as human beings that it's hard to even notice that we're playing the comparison game. And I know what you're all going to say, yeah, I notice when I'm playing it. I'm scrolling through social media, and I know I start comparing myself to so-and-so, and I realize that's not right because they're got the... No, that's not what I'm talking about. You guys remember in elementary school playing the comparison game? Remember how you've been playing it since the day you were born. You go to school and you notice everything about everybody else and how they're better at certain things. Like some of you still carry this comparison. You still compare yourself to that one kid, right? And he was always good in math, and he did the math the fastest, and this is why you hate math, right? Because you compared yourself to that kid who was always doing the thing that you couldn't quite do quite as fast, and you're like, God, I'm just terrible at math, and so you just gave up on math. Or maybe you saw you wanted so bad to be an athlete, and you were not gifted at athleticism, but you compared yourself to all the athletes in your class, your speed and your ability, and you're like, man, and you gave up on sports. Why? Because it was just not fun being compared to anybody out there. Or maybe on the flip side, you were the pretty girl, right? But you always got treated like the pretty girl, right? And you were comparing yourself around to other people, and so you thought, well, if they're pretty, like I'm pretty, and they're treating me like I'm pretty, then I'll just play that up and I'll be the pretty girl. And for the whole of your life, you felt an insecurity about yourself in other areas because you were the pretty girl, and nobody ever thought you could do anything else. And so now you carry this little thing, because comparison actually does something at the core of us that we don't even think about. Research tells us that 10% of our thoughts daily are comparison thoughts. That's a lot of thinking about how we measure up to other people. And it doesn't stop as kids, does it? The older you grow, the less it actually goes away. Like you start looking because you're competing in high school for scholarships. In college, you're starting to compete for that position, that internship. And then you're starting to compete on the real level. Like I got to get that house, and I got to get that car, and I got to get the right kind of spouse to get the right kind of family. And you're competing with everybody. Have you ever played the comparison game and compete with everybody in the room and nobody knows you're comparing yourself to them? Yeah, we all do that. This is why I say it's so destructive to relationships, because you have, and gosh, are you kidding me? Some of you carry a comparison with somebody in your family or somebody you work with, and they have no clue, but in your head, you're always measuring up. In your head, you're always seeing how they're doing. How's that person doing now that we get together at Thanksgiving? How are they doing now? I wonder if I got ahead. And you're doing that all in the back of your mind. And do you think that affects the way you treat that person? Of course it does. Of course it does. So listen, if we could stop doing this comparison thing, if we could figure out how to not let that ruin the way we think about and treat the people in our lives, don't you think your life would be less frustrating and possibly less anxious? Because here's what I know about my comparison. My comparison always drives me to be anxious because it feels like I'm not measuring up, or sometimes it feels like, man, I got it all figured out because I'm comparing myself to other people who I feel like are lower than me. And so then that really pumps me up, and then, man, I'm good. So let's talk about the two types of comparison real quick before we jump into the solution to this problem. Because here's what I want you to know, that these two ways we compare, this upward and this downward way, actually work together to create this really interesting cyclone of anxiety in us. So upward comparison is simply this, right? When you compare yourself to someone that you think is better than you, right? And you're always looking ahead toward, and you're trying to keep up with, and you're like looking at them being like, man, they've always got it all together, and they're doing this, and they're going there, and maybe it's travel for you. Like you're watching these people take these awesome vacations, and you're like stuck here for the summer, and you're like, I guess we're going to the park again, kids. And you feel like you're just failing in general, right? So your upward comparison. Now, upward, here's what it creates in me. I don't know about you, but I get envious, I get insecure, and then I get really discontent with my family and the people around me and the people I work with. And I kind of just stagnate, right? When I get really, really into comparison mode and get envious, I just stop because I don't know. See, you're different. You're probably a competitive person. You're like, no, man, that gets me going. Like for me, it's just like, man, I can't compete. I'm done. We're done here. So I get envious, I get jealous, I start creating these things in my mind about that person. Let's say I'm jealous about the fact that they've kind of moved up quicker in their job area, and man, everybody looks up to them. They come to them for advice, and I get really insecure about my own self, and I start creating this story in my head about that person, how stupid they are all the time. Really, everybody thinks they're smart, but they're really dumb. I do all that in my head, right? And I get discontent, and I don't even notice the people around me. I don't notice anything I've done good, and it's all over. That's upward comparison. Downward comparison is the opposite. When you compare yourself to someone you think you're better than in some way, I don't know about for you, but for me, that produces prideful and critical comments. So then, right, when I'm downward comparing, it's like, bro, if you could just do like me, if you could live like me, your life would be better. And that's most of you guys in the room. Listen, if you guys could just get up to this level, I know. In fact, we had a guy this morning look at Matt and be like, what's it like being so handsome? I was like, you're asking the wrong guy. He doesn't know. It's me, I know, right? That's so prideful, right? And have you ever done the critical thing, though, in the back of your head where it feels like you're being nice to the person? You ever do that? You know, you're comparing yourself to that person, but you feel like you're being nice. Hey, listen, I know you're not quite there yet, but I could help you. And you feel like you're being so generous and so kind because this person isn't quite where you are, right? And here's the thing. We all tend to compare, especially when we feel insecure. This upward thing, we see somebody who's doing something we want to be doing, we get jealous, and guess what we tend to do? That immediately turns into, well, I got to find somebody else to make me feel good, so I'll find somebody to downward compare to. And it creates this cyclone, because once you get to downward, then you're like, well, I'm not there yet, and it's awful to be in the middle of this anxious zone of being insecure, but also prideful. To be envious, but also to be critical. To be discontent in both areas. And then you're stuck because you're never, ever, ever going to get out of this, are you? Right? Because comparison is really at the core of it. It's both of them are joined by the same thing. It's a result of the fact that you don't trust God to give you what you need right now. See, that's for those of you who are not followers of Jesus, or you're not sure about your faith yet in God. For those of us who follow Jesus, we know that we compare to other people because we're thinking that comparison will help us measure up and find what it is that we need, right? But if we can trust God in those moments, if we can learn to find our faith in who He is and what He's given us right now, if we could trust that, then we don't find ourselves comparing quite as much to the people around us. At least not in the way that comparison often drives us to this anxious, weird spot. So here's what I want to do. I want to show you a passage today that's going to help us understand what the other game is that we should be playing. And it comes from Ecclesiastes, which is a book of wisdom from King Solomon, one of the kings of Israel. And these few verses we're going to read today kind of like help us put right in the midst of where we are at the core of our beings when we compare. And hopefully it's going to help us understand, even for those of you in the room who are not followers of Jesus, you're kind of here and you're like checking this whole thing out. Listen, there's even some great stuff in here for you because at the core of our beings, if we could learn to not compare as much, our relationships would be much more driven by a love for people and accepting love from people rather than trying to figure out how to fit in and being insecure and anxious in the midst of all that. So here's what I want to do. I want to show you what he says first about this situation we get ourselves in. King Solomon says, "And I saw that all toil and achievement spring from one person's envy of another." All toil and achievement. Everything, think about that. All the things that you've done to get to where you are, did you do it because you were trying to catch up with somebody else? Or get what somebody else had? Do you find yourself working and working and working and working and working so that you can get this thing, this lifestyle, this whatever it is that you know is going to make you feel right about yourself? Because you've compared yourself. And listen, some of you are going to be like, I don't ever compare myself to anybody. Maybe there's not a specific person you compare yourself to. This is what I think American comparison is so funny. American comparison is usually not with a person. It's just with a way that we think we're supposed to be able to live in America. Like there's just this kind of like, the perfect life in America would be like, I'm always getting better, and eventually I become manager, and eventually become the boss, and I'm my own boss. And when I'm my own boss, I set my own hours. And when I set my own hours, man, I can go where I want. And when I get to go where I want with my family, go to the cool places and wear khakis and a white t-shirt on the beach and get a photo and show it to everybody on social media, I've made it. Right? So listen, I don't know what version it is for you, that the perfect life, but listen, you constantly work and to try to achieve something because there's something in your head that tells you have to work. And here's what King Solomon says. All that achievement and toil, and that word toil is really interesting, right? Toil is something you do over and over again that doesn't really make any. I keep thinking of a hamster wheel. Toil is a hamster wheel, right? You just toil away. You're always working. Has everybody looked at you and been like, oh my gosh, you work too much? And you're like, yeah, I do, because I'm making money. I'm providing my family. We can go, right? This whole deal, he says, is because you envy other people. Do you ever find yourself in that position where what you're striving for, whether it's that truck or that house or that family or that vacation or those clothes or just that certain sweet spot of whatever you want, do you find yourself working for that, whether it's relationally or with your actual workplace and your job? Is it driven by an envy in you? Is it driven by anxiety that you're not going to ever measure up, that you're not going to be able to get there? Yeah, I do that. I do that a lot. And I don't even think about it because it just seems natural to do. Well, I'm just trying to get where I'm supposed to go. Here's what King Solomon says we're all missing the point on. He says, this too is meaningless, a chasing after the wind. Wait a minute. Chasing after the wind? You ever tried to chase the wind? You're smarter than that, I know. Right? It makes no sense. It's meaningless. Maybe, just maybe, the thing that's driving you, the anxiety you feel about not measuring up, the want and desire to have this certain thing is driving you toward meaningless. And nobody in the room wants meaningless. You want your work to mean something. You want your life to mean something. You want your relationships to mean something. In fact, what you're working for, you think is going to give you greater purpose and meaning in life because you'll be able to get to this sweet spot of just like perfection. Or you'll be able to get to that lifestyle that gives you the freedom that you've always wanted. And you think what you're fighting for is the meaningful. And King Solomon says, no. If envy, if what's at the core is a comparison of these other things, these other people around you, and what you're working for is false, it's meaningless, it's a chasing of the wind. And then all of you in the room who are really driven people are going, so do we just give up? So we don't have to do any work? And everybody in the room that's kind of like wired like me is like, finally, somebody can let off the gas and we could just relax. Right? We just be free. Do what we want. Just be cool. Cool. It's okay. We didn't make the car payments. It's good. They'll come collect it next week. No. Actually, King Solomon says something different. And this is the verse I don't like. Some of you don't like this verse. I don't like this next verse. Because comparison is endless. He says, I skipped the slide. Thanks, Jennifer. You did a great job. Move on. I forgot it. That's me. I forgot. Gosh. Fools fold their hands and ruin themselves. That's me. Because I would like a life of leisure. Just to be honest with you. I'm not as driven as some of the people like me, but I look at this and I go, doggone it, we can't even relax around here. If you give up on working and doing the things that you know you're supposed to do, you're just a fool because you're ruining yourself. But I'm chasing after the wind. I'm envying. No. So here's what King Solomon is trying to point us to. If you're driven by this envy and this comparison, you end up in meaninglessness. If you give up and you don't do anything, and you don't work hard at anything, you also ruin yourself. Well, that puts us nowhere. Where are we going from there? Because comparison drives me. Comparison is things that keeps me on top of my game. When I'm comparing myself to them, man, I've got what it takes to get to the top, and man, that's what drives me. He says, oh, that's unhealthy. I don't want to compare myself to anybody. I don't want to do anything hard. I'm just going to sit back and relax. That's not good either. You with me? And all of you in the room are like, it's the middle ground. It's actually not the middle ground. Here's what he says is the answer to comparison. You ready? Better one handful with tranquility than two handfuls with toil and chasing after the wind. It's a beautiful image, isn't it? He says, one handful with tranquility. When you pick up the work you do, are you satisfied with the one handful? Or are you always grasping for more than what you've got? He says, what if you could just take a one handful tranquil? What if you could be just peaceful with the work you do and the hard work you do, and what you get out of that hard work is what you get. And you're okay with that. Rather than grasping with the second hand, always trying to grab the next thing that you can. Because you never get satisfied. Because you're always comparing, because comparison, the slide I missed earlier, is endless. Have you ever in your life gotten to a point where you're like, there's nobody else to compare myself to? I'm pretty much good. Like I'm perfect. I'm great. I'm awesome. I'm richer than everybody I know. I have all the things I've ever wanted in life. If you have, guess what? You've also turned around and thought, man, none of this really means anything. Because you've lost some of the relationships along the way, haven't you? Because you fought to get to that top point, and you realized to fight to get to that top, you had to leave behind everybody else. And this is his point. He's not saying don't work hard. Work hard, but be satisfied with one handful. Put your best into your work. Do your very best, but do it joyfully and be at peace with the people that you work with. Because it's not a comparison game. You're not trying to beat them all out. You're just trying to do really, really good work for the good of the people around you and be satisfied with what you get out of that work. And if you keep grasping and grasping, yeah, you might end up with two handfuls, but you are going to be toiling and chasing after the wind, and eventually you'll be alone. Because comparison always drives you away from the people that you want to be close to. So my question is simply this to you. What is the second handful costing you this morning? What is it costing you? Yeah, you're getting it all, but what is it costing you? You feel like you're getting what you deserve, but man, what is it costing you? Let me give you some categories to think through. I'm just going to walk you through. Like, what about in your work? Are you working too much? What is it costing you with your relationships with your family and your friends? Are you working so much and so hard that you just have given up on having a good time with anybody? Because it just takes work. What are you working for? For those of you who are in the sports game, like, are you just so into it? And everything that you do is about that sport and everything. Like, what is it costing you? I'm not saying it's bad. I'm just saying, is that the thing? What about with your house that you're working for? You ever bought the house and then you're like, man, the payments. That's all you could drive your mind. What about the car or the truck? Right? You're already underwater on that car and truck. Man, but I already want a new one. What about the dating? Man, they're kind of good looking. They're kind of smart, but what if there's something better? What if you capture that person that is the good looking, smart person and you bring them home, but they don't fit in with your family? And you're like, oh gosh, what's the dating life look like? What's it costing you to always be comparing? What about with your kids? Do you sometimes push your kids because of what you want them to be compared to the kids you've seen? That's unfair to them and how God created them? What about with your travel? Do you just want to go to the places to get the photos so you can bring it back and show everybody, look where I was? And you didn't even really enjoy it. And then you got back and you're still paying for it on your credit card. Is just your general lifestyle one that is completely driven by this anxiety to keep up with something else and somebody else in my world, rather than just sitting in the midst of your life and being okay with what you have? Here's what I think is the real answer. Here's what Solomon's driving at. Instead of playing the comparison, just play the contentment game. Play the game that says, I trust God enough that He's going to give me what I need right where I am. And that doesn't mean for all of you in the room, yeah, but I want to have a better life. And I want to be able to give my kids things, and I want to be able to travel. Listen, those are not wrong impulses from the core. What I'm saying is, don't let comparison drive you to work and do these things out of the wrong desire. Be content and be hopeful. Be content and work hard. Be content and put things away and save up for those things that you think are going to be great for your family and for yourself and that you'll enjoy. But don't let anybody else define that for you. And don't let your own idea of what is perfect define how happy you are right now in the moment of doing that. Because the contentment game is really built on three basic things for those of us who are followers of Jesus. Here's the thing. You need to just run your race. Here's what I mean by that. When you talk to good runners, the good runners don't pay attention to anybody else in the field of running. They don't look at the person way out ahead of them. They don't look at the person behind them because that's going to slow you down. You ever seen those people that are doing that and the person comes up on their left and passes them? That's hilarious, right? You also don't look to anybody to your side and just try to keep up because you lose your stride. Run your race means, what has God given me right now? What can I be faithful with right now? And how do I need to trust God with what I've got right now? And hoping someday I can maybe have this and go do this, and blah, blah, but right now I'm so concerned with me and what race I'm running. I'm not going to compare myself to who's behind or who's ahead or who's beside. I'm just focused on this right now. I'm running my race with what God gave me. And this is what God gave me, and I'm going to work it. I'm going to do it well. I'm going to do it my best, and I'm going to just see what the results are out of it. And that's what I'm going to keep doing. Number 2, you focus on Jesus. Here's what I would say of this one. Listen, I know you believe in Jesus. Most of you in the room right here, you're here because you believe in Jesus. If you don't believe in Jesus, listen, this number 2, this is insider talk for a second. Do you really believe in the idea of Jesus? Or do you believe that Jesus really is who he says he is, that he's the Lord of your life, and that he will give you what you need when you need it? This is the trick of faith, isn't it? I got to trust and focus on Jesus every single day to give me what I need. Because here's what you don't often do, because I also know this about myself, is I wake up in the morning, I depend on my talent and what I've already got to work with, and I look at what I've done. And I'll just keep doing the good things with all the things I've got already, and then something bad hits or hard hits or difficult hits or challenging hits, and I forget that my focus needs to be on Jesus and who he is right now today, giving me what I need today. So you run your race, you focus on Jesus, and then you consistently choose gratitude. Because here's what I know about everybody in the room. You have something to be grateful for. And you're probably not grateful enough for it. Because if you were, you wouldn't be paying attention to Susie over there and Joey over there and Bob over there and Cindy over there. Because you'd be so grateful for the people you've got. You'd be so grateful for the job you have. You'd be so grateful for the house you live in. You'd be so grateful for all these people who help you when it gets... Listen, you'd be so grateful. You wouldn't care what anybody else has because you have enough. Contentment is learning that gratitude is the key to releasing all of that. And if you could find your way to that, rather than competing with the guy tomorrow at work, you'd want him to win tomorrow at work because you know as a team you guys could do it better together. And you wouldn't have this weird thing going on in your mind about your manager because you look at them and, man, I'd like to be making their salary and having all that. But you make it harder on their life because you don't like them in the back of your head because of what they've got that you don't have. And so you don't do good work, and then your life gets worse because of them. And it's all their fault. Instead, can you just run your race? Focus on Jesus to give you what you need. Be grateful for what you already have because this is the key to some of the relationships. Listen, this is why some of you struggle so much with your mental health because you are so in a comparison mode every single day, you could never, ever be happy with just you. And Jesus is looking at you going, no, you don't understand. I'm here with you. And I'm going to provide what you need. And I've given you everything you need already. I just want you to turn to me and work with me on it. What you have is enough. What you have is enough. So let me end with this. Will you try to be this week a one handful person? Would you be somebody who is content? Would you let your contentment spread to your relationships at your workplace and in your family so they could see what somebody who is fully focused on Jesus looks like, who is running their race based on what they have and not on what they're trying to grab? And could you find contentment in that so that all your relationships step into a world where you can love freely and accept love freely from people rather than defending yourself with insecurity and criticizing other people because you don't feel like you belong? Let me pray for you. Father in heaven, would you just help us to get to the core? God, we sometimes miss it because it's just so ingrained in our culture that we are comparing ourselves to other people. And God, would you help just release us from this prison that we put ourselves in, to look at who's ahead of us and who's behind us. And all this comparison does is just drive us crazy. Drives us to anxiety and insecurity. And God, would you help us to be comfortable with who you've made us to be? Would you help us be content with what you've given us right now? And then would you help us use it faithfully? And God, we're going to trust that you're going to provide everything we need. And God, we know you're the kind of God who will give us what we need in the moment because you love us. And I pray this in Jesus' name. Amen.
Hey, if you'd like more content like this, subscribe to our YouTube channel and download our Journey app to access all of our recent message content. And our app is the easiest way to share this content with a friend. For more information on our church or to find our app or our YouTube channel, just visit journeycalway.com. That's journeycalway.com. Thanks for listening.